Hello, everybody. This article is coming from Stat News. It was sent to me by BGS. Thank you, BGS, for sending me this article. I appreciate it. I heard about this fight, so to speak, between those who want to push CRISPR babies and improve upon the technology of CRISPR, and those who want to stop it. And from this article, they're saying that, alarmed by the Crisprbabies plan, top science figures say they're powerless to stop it. And I agree with them. I don't see how they're going to be able to stop certain scientists who want to push designer babies. They were calling them designer babies at one point, but now they're calling them CRISPR babies, which is more accurate because designer babies is not identifying a specific application that's used. CRISPR is a genetic application that's used. It requires a lot of technology and in silico analysis to develop a guide RNA that you use to target a specific gene or gene family. So this was published June 24th, just yesterday. This lady pictured here is Dr. Margaret Hamburg. She serves as co-chair of an international advisory committee on human genome editing. You probably think that you would never hear of a committee like this, but I have seen a lot of these committees starting to develop in the past couple of years. So this is an international advisory committee on human genome editing. This international advisory committee has existed for a while now. They've had other committees that were around since the Human Genome Project. I know of one in particular that's been around since 2002. And it was not human genome editing, it was just genome editing and genome discovery, things like that. That's how they would term it, genome discovery, because there were still things within the human genome that were not understood. Now they've pushed it a step further within 20 or so years to say that this is, when you look back at the documents from the late 1990s, early 2000s, even at this time, a couple years ago up to now, I'm looking back at articles from late 1990s, early 2000s, late 2000s to see how the phrasing has changed. It has changed dramatically, where you go from saying genome discovery to genome editing. The next will be genome a singularity. That's what they're moving towards, a singularity. But before they get to singularity, they'll probably say genome convergence, something like that. Then they'll say singularity. There is an article where the human mind is being merged with AI in an interface. I don't know if anyone's seen that. If you have, let me know in the comment section below. I'll try to remember to do an article on that. I have that article. I just hadn't done a video on it. I was trying not to scare people. I don't like to be the Debbie Downer of Black YouTube or anything. But it is true. It's better to face what's coming than to try to hide your head in the sand like an ostrich. Just face what's coming and try to make adjustments and adapt to it the best you can. Anyway, going on to this article, they talk about two influential leaders in science for the first time publicly condemned a Russian biologist. He said he plans to produce gene-edited babies, but conceded that it was beyond their organization's authority to halt him from doing so. He basically saying, y'all can't stop me from doing what I'm doing. And that's pretty much it. He's very defiant about what he's doing. He doesn't want to stop. And they are attempting to change the wording of what he's doing. That's really what I get from a lot of the articles I'm reading. So in separate interviews with Stat over the weekend, Margaret Hamburg, co-chair of an international advisory committee on human genome editing, and Victor Dzaal, president of the U.S. National Academy of Medicine, said they were deeply concerned by the plans outlined by Russian scientist Denis Rebrakov. Hamburg said, "I don't know where we get the teeth to do some of what may ultimately need to be done to respond in such situations." I want you to listen to what she just said. She said, "I still don't know where we get the teeth to do some of what may ultimately need to be done to respond in such situations." So she's telling you that what Rebrakov is trying to do is what may ultimately need to be done anyway. But she's saying, where do we get the balls to do it? What she's really saying, in my opinion, is where do we get the balls to publicly talk about this? This should not be something that's publicly talked about. I think that's where she's coming from. They understand that this will need to be done at some point. But publicly talking about it is a totally different thing. Then you have another group that was having a discussion, a TED Talk discussion, that's coming from Twitter. You can go and figure that out. I'm not going to focus on that because I'm trying to keep it more on what Hamburg, Rebrakov, and Dzaal is discussing here. She also says that there has been very public and explicit, that the Russian scientist has been very public and explicit, but we're not in any kind of position to enforce or even provide assessment of what the nature of the work is and how it's going to move forward. Dzaal is the president of the Academy, and he's championing another effort to create a commission to monitor human genome editing. He reacted sharply when asked about the Russian scientist, asserting, "This is crazy, and it worries me tremendously. But I don't know what we can do to stop him. Every country has its own sovereignty," meaning every country can make their decisions of how they want to go forward with this Rebrakov's work that he's carrying out. The intentions of the Russian scientist surfaced in an article in Nature earlier this month, so that was earlier in June. Rebrakov is a molecular biologist in Moscow. He said he was considering implanting gene-edited embryos into women as soon as this year, if he could get approval from the Russian government, which I'm sure he could get. He said he would edit a gene called CCR5 in the hopes of protecting any offspring against HIV infection. So as you remember, when I did my videos on CRISPR editing, this is the same gene that was manipulated by He Jiankui in China, but they said that his work was unethical and irresponsible, and this is according to leaders in science and medicine. That outrage from Dr. Jiankui's work set forth efforts to establish oversight. One method of oversight was conducted by the World Health Organization. Hamburg is a chair of that committee. She also serves as a chair of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, or better known as AAAS. Many scientists around the world have called for a global moratorium on editing DNA in human genomes. Others have argued that a moratorium would be excessive and squelch responsible applications of gene editing, even as they have urged caution. So there's still a debate going back and forth of whether or not this is a feasible way of conducting research. But what I want to do, and you can watch this link here in blue, broadcast interview with NPR, where Rebrakov, the Russian scientist, is defending his plans, answering questions that people have, and giving more insight into what he wants to do in the future. The article from Nature was published June 10th, 2019. Nature, as I've said before in other videos, is a reputable research journal of various topics of research, STEM primarily, where you can find a lot of information. So the Russian biologist plans more CRISPR edited babies. He wants to follow up on what the Chinese scientists did by editing embryos last year that has been discussed. This is a picture of Dr. Rebrakov, who is planning the controversial gene editing experiments in HIV positive women. So there is a lot of controversy surrounding his work. The most controversial thing in his work, in my opinion, is the fact that he wants to use HIV positive women to do his experiments with implanting gene edited embryos into HIV positive women. So if you really think about it, this man is in Russia. He may not be able to do the work in Russia. What other population of women are there outside of Russia that may have a high occurrence of HIV infection? So you can draw your own conclusions from that. It may not be the population of women you think, but you can still make your hypothesis. So Rebrakov plans to disable the gene CCR5, which encodes the protein that allows HIV to enter the cells, and embryos that will be implanted into HIV positive mothers, reducing the risk of them passing on the virus to the baby in utero. He modified the gene in embryos created from fathers with HIV, which many geneticists said provided little clinical benefit because the risk of a father passing on HIV to his children is minimal. So he already tried this with the fathers by taking fathers that were HIV positive, taking their sperm and doing in vitro fertilization and artificial insemination, where you take the HIV father's sperm and fertilize the mother's egg in vitro in a petri dish. Then you do artificial insemination, where you fertilize the mother, you implant that fertilized egg into the mother, but there was really no response because HIV is hard to pass from the father to the child. Okay, so they want to focus more on the mother now. With everything going on with low birth rates and abortions and a lot of other things as far as genetic editing, this is an interesting topic that's going to probably catch more attention. So I just wanted to bring it to you, let you know what's going on. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.